Dear friends, in this tutorial we are going to look into reading and writing CSV and Excel files in Pandas, and here is the list of items we are covering in this video. Okay, let's get started. What we are going to do first is start a Jupyter notebook. I prefer Jupyter notebook because it is great with data visualization. You can use whatever IDE you prefer, PyCharm, Notepad++, it really doesn't matter. I have started my notebook, and the first thing I'm going to do is create a new notebook by selecting new and Python. First thing we are going to do is read a CSV file into a Pandas data frame. I have this CSV file which contains stock market data. I have tickers, earning per share, revenue, price, and the people associated with that company. CSV file is nothing but a comma separated value file. So if you open it in plain Notepad++, it looks something like this, where you have values separated by comma. These files are a lot similar to Excel files. So whatever methods and properties we are going to cover, they pretty much apply to Excel files as well. Okay. So let's begin by importing Pandas as PD as usual. And then you will create a data frame by saying df equal to pd.readCSV, and in the bracket you supply the name of the CSV file, which is stock_data.csv. okay, and then you print your data frame. When you do this, it will successfully read this CSV file into a data frame. So let me now keep this CSV file open on the side so that you can see what's going on. So I'm going to arrange my windows here so that you can see CSV file as well as the notebook. All right, this looks good. Okay, now here you will notice that it read the whole CSV file into a data frame, and it successfully imported the column names and all the rows. Okay, now what can happen is sometimes you might have an extra header in your CSV file. So I'm just going to insert an extra header here, and let's say you can have like one row, or you can have a couple of extra rows, and what you want to do is really start reading from here. Okay, so let me first just read this as is and see what happens. So I didn't save it, so let me save it and run it. So when you do this, what will happen is it will treat this particular line as a header. Now what you want to do is you want to really skip this row. Okay, so the way you do that is by supplying skip rows argument. So there is skip_rows, and when you say 1, it's gonna skip one row from the top. So when I run this, I'm getting an error. So looks like, let me see what is the exact method name. So if you Google Pandas read CSV, it's gonna list all the methods that you have. So if you look at here, and if you search for skip, so here it says skip rows. Okay, so I provided underscore, which was wrong. So now you can see that it skipped this first line and started reading from second line. You can also do the same thing by saying header equal to 1, and it will produce the same output. So it's saying that my header is located at row number 1. Okay, all right, now we can have a reverse situation so that instead of having this, let's say, extra header, you don't have this header at all. So let's say your CSV file is something like this, where you don't have header, but you somehow know that this is ticker, this is EPS, and so on. So what you want to do in that case is you want to say header is equal to none. Okay, so what it will do is it will automatically generate these columns names, but these column names are not good. It says 0 1 2 3 4, which I don't like. So the way you supply these column names is by providing names argument into your read CSV method, and you can provide the column names in sequence. So your first column is ticker, your second column is, let's say, EPS, your third column is let me see what it was. It is revenue, price and people. Okay, so revenue, price and people, or revenue, price and people. When you run this, you will notice that it will create these columns. So always use header equal to none and names equal to column names whenever you have a missing header in your CSV file. Okay, now let me revert back my CSV file to its original state, which is this, and I'm going to remove this extra thing here. Okay, now what can happen sometimes is your CSV file is, let's say, pretty big and you want to read only few rows from it. Let's say you want to read only maybe 3 rows. Okay, so the way you do that is by doing n rows equal to 3. So n rows means number of rows that you want to read into a data frame, and when I say 3, it will exactly read 3 rows excluding your header. Okay, so sometimes if you have millions of lines in your CSV or Excel files and you want to limit how many lines you want to read, then you can use n rows argument. Okay, the next useful argument is NA values. So here you can see that in my data frame there are couple of problems. Couple of cells I have as not available, NA, etc. Okay, so I want to read these things as not a number value, so NaN. Okay, so that you can do by saying NA values equal to not available and n.a. What this means is whenever you are reading CSV file and if you encounter not available, so not available and NA, turn that into NaN value. Okay, so if you do this, you will notice that, okay, I was missing dot, so let me execute one. So you'll notice that it replaced n.a with NaN. It also replaced not available as NaN, and here also there was NaN. So if you look at this file here, this and these 3 cells are now replaced by NaN. Okay, so this is useful in cleaning up the messy data that you get from your CSV or Excel file. Okay, so we took care of not available and NA values, but there is one more problem with this data frame if you notice it carefully. I have revenue column and I have -1 as a revenue. Now any company's revenue cannot be negative. It is either 0 or greater than 0. So this is clearly a problem and I want to convert this to NaN. Now if I put -1 here, then what's gonna happen is it's gonna convert this to NaN, but at the same time it is going to convert this guy also as NaN. Now earning per share could be negative. Companies don't report negative earning per share, but in theory it could be negative. So you don't want to convert this guy to NaN. So how do you do that? If you put -1 directly here, then you notice that this guy got converted to NaN. Well, in that case, instead of supplying a list, you can supply a dictionary. So what you can do is you can supply a dictionary and you can say this. You can say that in my earning per share column, whenever you find n.a or not available, convert that to nan. Okay, but in my revenue column, you can convert both of these things to let me copy paste. Okay, you can convert both of these things to nan, but in addition to that, convert -1 also into nan, because I know that revenue cannot be negative, so negative value is always nan. Okay, and same thing now with people, you can say not available or na, both are nan. And when you run this, you will notice that -1 still stayed as -1, and my revenue, which was negative here, got converted to nan. So this is pretty powerful feature. This na underscore values could be useful in cleaning up your messy data, and this allows you to do data munging or data wrangling. Okay, all right, so that was about read CSV. Now how about writing back to CSV? So for writing back to CSV, what you can do is, so I have already this data frame with me. Whenever I want to write this back to CSV, the way I have read CSV file, there is a to CSV file. So I have two CSV file where I can say new.csv. So I am writing this particular data frame, which is this guy here, to a file called new.csv, and when I run this, it executed fine. So if I go to my directory, I will find this new.csv file, and when I open it, okay, let me minimize this file. When I open it, you can see that it wrote this CSV file. Okay, now the one observation I have with this file is it wrote this index also. So by default it writes the index. If you don't want to write this index, then you can say index equal to false, and when you run this, okay, permission denied because this CSV file is open right now. So let me close it, do not save, and when I run this again, it worked this time. So if I open new.csv now, what happens is I now don't see that index being written to this file. Okay, it has couple of other arguments also. Sometimes you don't want to write, let's say, all the columns. Let's say I want to write only two columns, tickers and EPS, and I want to skip exporting these three columns to my CSV file. And the way you would do that is by providing columns argument. So first let me just print the df columns. So I have these many columns, and what I want to do now, out of these columns, I want to write new.csv and export only two columns, which is tickers and EPS. So df.toCSV, the name of the CSV file where you want to export, and the column names. When you run this, looks like it worked. Open new.csv file, and you will notice here that this file has now only two columns to it. Excellent. Okay, now sometimes you want to skip exporting the header. So to do that, you can provide header argument, and say header equal to false. So when you do this, let me close this guy here and run this. Looks like it worked again. And if you look at this thing now here, you don't see any header. So it skipped writing header to my CSV file. Okay, that was all about writing to CSV file. Now let's look at read Excel. Okay, so I'm going to clean up all these cells, and I have an Excel file here. So let me just open the Excel file. It is basically same as the CSV file that we had. Okay, so I'll just put it here. You can see the same stuff. I have this sheet 1 here and all the same columns. So import pandas as PD, and the way you read Excel file is by doing pd dot read Excel, and the name of the Excel file is talkdata.xlsx. Now I have my file in the same folder as my Jupyter notebook. If you have it in a different folder, then you need to provide the complete path. Okay, all right, the next argument is the sheet name. Here it is sheet 1, so sheet 1 here. Okay, and print df. When you do this, you can see that it created data frame successfully. Okay, now sometimes you want to do conversion of your cell content from Excel. Okay, so here you can see that I have NA in Walmart's people column. Now I know that Walmart's key person was Sam Walton. So if you want to convert this NA into Sam Walton, then you can use converter. So the way you use your converter is basically this. So what you do is you will define a function. So let me first define a function. So you will say convert people. Okay, convert people cell, and this is your cell content, and you will say if cell is equal to n.a. okay, then what you want to do is return Sam Walton, otherwise return cell, whatever you got. Okay, and then here in read Excel file you can supply converters argument, which takes converters argument will basically take Python dictionary. Okay, and in Python dictionary you can supply the name of the column. So for people column, I want to use this particular function. So whenever it is reading people column, it's gonna call this function for every single cell. For every single cell that you're reading in this column is gonna call this function and do this conversion. Okay, so let's read this. So when you read this, what happened is you can see that instead of Walmart's key person to be NA, now it replaced it with Sam Walton. Okay, now this is not a very good example because I'm always converting NA to Sam Walton. I should be looking at the ticker, but this is just to give you a demonstration on how converters exactly work. Okay, you can also do the same thing with other columns. Let's say if you have some kind of logic to convert EPS cell, then you can do the same thing. You can write a converter routine for your earning per share column, and you can say, okay, whenever you find not available, you want to return none. Okay, and return cell back, and when you run this, you will see you got NaN. Okay, So this is how you use converters to convert your messy data into something meaningful that can be post-processed later on easily. Okay, last thing we are going to cover is writing Excel file. Okay, so now I have my data frame here, and if I want to write it back to an Excel file, I can do something like pd dot to Excel. Okay, to Excel, and the to Excel function takes the name of the file as an input. So my name of the Excel file is xlsx new.xlsx, and you need to supply the sheet name where you want to write to. So you can say stocks. Okay, and this should be data frame. When you run this, looks like it wrote to this file successfully. So if you open the directory, you find this new.xlsx file, and when you open it, you will see that it wrote this file successfully. Now again, same stuff. If you don't want to write your index, you can supply index to be false. Also, let's say in this Excel file you want to start writing at certain offset. Let's say you want to start writing at, okay, so start row, there is an argument called start row. You want to start writing at row number 1 and column number, let's say 2. Okay, so let me close this, don't save, run this again, and when you do this, your new.excel file is now returned from column number 2, so 0 1 2, so it started from column number 2 and row number 2, so 0 and 1, row number 1. Okay, so this is how you can write at certain offset or location in your Excel file. Also same stuff, if you don't want to write this index column to Excel, then you can always skip it by saying index equal to false. Okay, let me close this and run this again, and if I open new Excel file, you will notice that I don't have that index column being written to my Excel file. Okay, now if you have, let's say, 2 data frames and you want to write these 2 data frames to same Excel files in different sheets, how do you do that? Well, there is a class called Excel Writer which you can use. So let me first create 2 data frames. So I'm going to erase all these cells and create 2 data frames. So these 2 data frames are stocks and weather. Okay, so I have these 2 separate data frames which I created successfully, and what I want to do is write these 2 data frames into one single Excel files as 2 different sheets. Okay, so you will in that case use this Excel Writer class. So in Pandas data frame, in Pandas module, you have this Excel Writer class where you can say with pd.excelWriter, whatever is the name of your Excel file as writer, and you use that writer to write your individual data frame. So I'm writing my stocks data frame in sheet called stocks and my weather data frame in a sheet called weather. Okay, and when I run this, it works and I have this stocks underscore weather file created. When I open this file, you will notice that this file has 2 sheets, stocks where you can see all the stocks information, and weather where you can see all my weather information. And if you look at your data frame here, you can see you have your weather data 32, 35, 30, 28. Okay, and if you look at your stocks, you have your stocks data. You can see all these values, which is same as this particular data frame. Okay, so that was all about reading and writing to Excel files. I didn't cover all the properties that reading and writing Excel and CSV files offers. If you Google Pandas documentation on, let's say, read CSV or write CSV, you will find all these useful properties. So for example, for read CSV, you have so many other important properties that you can use. For example, you have separator and delimiter. Okay, so now in my case, I had a comma separated file where separator is comma, but sometimes you might have pipe or some other character as a separator, but using read CSV file, you can handle those characters by using this separator or delimiter argument. You have other useful properties as well, such as true values, false values, where you can say that if I have this particular value, then consider it as a true or a false value. You can also use skip footer for skipping your footers. You can also use skip blank lines. So sometimes if you have blank line in your file, you can just set this to be true and it will just ignore them. Next tutorial is going to be how do you handle missing data in Pandas. So stay tuned and have fun learning Pandas. If you like this tutorial, please give it a thumbs up below and also share and comment on whatever feedback you have for me. Okay, so that was all I had. Thank you for watching.